Hi, I'm Bybreen Samuels and welcome back to another episode of Soul Stirring Astrology, where I give you my textured take on the world of astrology, where we're now into the third episode of my Saturn series. So today I'm touching on Saturn in Sagittarius. So it's the end of the fire sign trilogy. So when we're dealing with Saturn in Sagittarius, we first need to look at the moniker of what Sagittarius and Jupiter represent. So when we're dealing with these two entities, what we're looking at is the kind of framework from which you construct and build your life. So whereas Gemini deals with the lower mind or first stage type of education, Sagittarius deals with the higher mind, higher learning, and it's looking at the philosophies, the point of views, the religions, spiritual laws and man-made laws. And where is it that you fit within that framework? So you might be deeply religious from a conventional point of view, or you might take a sort of spiritual observation of life and then trying to work out from the granular details that you gained when you were moving through Gemini, which is opposite Sagittarius. Gemini is dealing with, gathering information, sharing information with others. Once you get to Sagittarius, what you're trying to do is to establish meaning, profundity, point of view as to what makes the world up. What's the frameworks that guide us from an internal point of view as well as an external point of view. It's also about having faith and broadening your horizons and looking at life from an expansive point of view. It's about joy and abundance. And so where you have this context, but then you've got Saturn there, Saturn is very uncomfortable in Sagittarius, and reason being is because Saturn, when it's in Capricorn and Aquarius, is the authority figure. Sagittarius is the sign before Capricorn, so Saturn wants to get to Capricorn. In Sagittarius, it's not too sure, and the reason being is because those of you with Saturn in Sagittarius may not have worked out what your own point of view is, what your own authority is, and that's what Saturn is really calling you to do. It's this tension between what is it that you actually believe and will stand by versus the expectations that society may have of you about your belief systems. What you may find here is that Saturn in Sagittarius can show that religion and the kind of religions that are practiced may be too constricting for you, because that's what Saturn does. It looks at the context of something and then starts to narrow and constrict. What you're invited here to do is to examine the expansiveness of your psyche. Here again, Saturn tends to focus down, because if we think about religion can be seen and experienced by people, it's kind of fear of God, guilt, punishment. What could be perceived as limiting ways in which you can experience yourself and life. What you're trying to do is to find meaning, and there's a brilliant book called it's written by Viktor Frankl, and it's about man's meaning of life, something like that. I haven't quite quoted the right title, but it's written by Viktor Frankl, and he survived the Nazi concentration camps, and through that it was about his own evolution of how to find meaning in life. And that's what Sagittarius invites you to do, but also Saturn in Sagittarius wants you to break through the limitations as to what you think the meaning of life could be, because you fear the constrictions brought about by religion. And what you're seeking to do is to find this sense of justice in life, because Sagittarius also rules justice. And somebody who had Saturn in Sagittarius was Martin Luther King. So if we all think about, his sermons and, I Have a Dream. And so I Have a Dream was it was his demonstration, or a demonstration of Saturn in Sagittarius, about the equality for everybody because of the disillusionment in terms of how the American government was dealing with racism and lack of civil liberties for black people. So Saturn in Sagittarius is calling upon you to break free of the frameworks that currently exist and to step into your own authority as to what could exist. And what's going to help you is for you to understand what are the values and the principles and the points of view that you actually believe in, because you have had direct experience of life. And having had direct experience of life, you are wearing the hat of Jupiter, which is about the guru. You're trying to make sense, you're trying to ascertain, you're trying to extract the wisdom from the lived experiences, because Sagittarius and Jupiter are very experiential arenas. And so you've picked up what Gemini had to offer. You're coming towards the last quarter of the zodiac. So Sagittarius is the 9th house. You're looking panoramically at the world. It relates to the world, but you're able to now take a subject and object perspective, because you've gathered the information brought about by Gemini and you're now trying to discern, but not in a Virgoan way. You are philosophizing, you're coming up with your own new world order, for example. And in the times we're living in, boy, do we not need our own world orders, because we can see the fragmentation of the reliance on the state, the government, how they are being exposed, the word doesn't mean anything. And it's a wonderful indication as to how we are waking up in consciousness. And so with Saturn in Sagittarius, you are called towards standing in your truth, and the truth that has a solid foundation. And, 2020, we're going to see the kind of plates, the shifting of societies, the shifting of the relationship between state and citizens. And that's particularly when Saturn conjuncts Pluto in Capricorn. That would be around January the 10th, 11th, 2020. And then alongside that we'll have Jupiter in Capricorn. So if you've got Saturn in Sagittarius, you are being called to find your own point of view, understand what your own point of view, not be fearful of stepping into the world, and to gain the experience, so therefore you can extract a point of view, and that point of view is going to help shape the framework from which you are now going to move out into the world. So that's it, beautiful people. That's Saturn in Sagittarius. Would love to hear how that shows up in your chart, for those of you who do have that signature. Or you may be aware of other people who have Saturn in Sagittarius, and I'd love to hear how they get on. So as always, put your comments in the comment box below. You know I always love to connect with you. Please share this episode with anybody in your network, and feel free to like and subscribe to my channel. Stay well, come up with your own framework, and I will see you again in the next episode of my Saturn series, where I will be looking at Saturn through the air signs. Okay, take care. Bye.